So, one of my friends on my actual non-activist Facebook group started sharing these from a guy named JJ Westgate. It says, Critical Race Theory Lesson 1. Your grandparents identify with one of these two groups and have handed down their values. Take all the time you need with this. Here we have a picture of racist white people pouring something over the head of a black person. And it looks like some of the white people that were there with them. Now, one of the problems with critical race theory is that it makes the assumption that, again, white people are a monolith. And so therefore, everybody is accountable for these things, even if, you had nothing to do with it. And quite possibly if nobody you even know or even related to had anything to do with it. So, when you look at this, it says to take all the time you need with this, and that this is somehow teaching us why we need to talk about critical race theory today. And the reality is that my grandparents didn't associate with anybody in this picture because they weren't even here. So that's an example of what I mean when I say, that critical race theory just generalizes white people in general. I don't think anybody has these values passed down to them. At least, there's a very tiny minority of people who still hold values like the ones shown in this picture as far as the ones doing the pouring. But anyway, so here's another one. Critical race theory lesson number 2. These folks birthed the idea of charter schools. And it shows some racist people with a "We want a white school" sign. Okay, but charter schools are used by anybody. It's not a racist concept. I know of plenty of black kids who go to charter schools. It just means that you can set up your own schools. And to be honest, if that's what the people in this picture wanted to do, was to go make a charter school for racist white kids, great. Then they don't have to be in my kid's school. So now we move on to critical race theory lesson number 3. These are the grandparents of the seditionists who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Now, again, we have another picture where this guy's making assumptions about the grandparents of others. But regardless, there are actually people of color present on January 6th, and many, in fact, engaged in the fighting alongside the white people there. I know that the left would really like the Capitol 6 riot to be about racism, because they've had their own racially motivated riots all summer, and this was the one chance they had to suggest that, maybe we should be paying attention to the other side and their violence. But I hate to break it to you, the January 6 riot was not about racism, which is why in some of the videos, I've already shared a video about a documentary I did in regards to comparing these riots. That in one case, there was a black gentleman in the tunnel fight that went on for 45 minutes, who was being carefully pulled out by the white people that were present and taken care of because he had been injured in the fight with the police. So if this was just a racist motivated issue on January 6th, why did that happen? And don't get me wrong, there can be black people present who, you don't agree with, but that doesn't make it all about race. The January 6th riot was about a group of people who were convinced that the election had been rigged and that their candidate was, cheated. They felt that democracy was being overturned, so they were fighting to preserve it. Were they misguided? Yeah, you could certainly make that argument, but it wasn't about racism, and it wasn't about white supremacy. Now, since I'm sure I'm going to be accused of lying about this, here's some footage of a black Trump protester being pulled to safety and helped up by his fellow protesters, most of which who were white. If you look right here, you'll see him.
For help.
I need somebody!
But instead...
And here's another one. Trump supporter Emmanuel Jackson was seen on video joining the Capitol riot. Moving on to critical race theory lesson number 4. There is an unbroken line between the people who murdered Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner to the people yelling "Stop the Steal." This is, again, just bullshit. You're just going to make an entire, an association for everybody who said "Stop the Steal"? So would that include the black people who said "Stop the Steal"? I know it's an inconvenient truth for you guys, but there were, in fact, Trump supporters who were black. And now, critical race theory lesson number 5. Your grandma isn't old-fashioned. She is now and has always been a racist. So again, generalizations made, about an entire race of people based on, whatever information they think is relevant. But this is just stupid. So this is critical race theory. We're going to tell you that your grandmother was definitely racist. My mom was a marcher and an activist and definitely not racist. But, I guess apparently my kids need to be taught that their grandmother must have been racist. And that's just horseshit. These are just lies. But again, this is what critical race theory is about. Turning the tables and suggesting that all white people are responsible for every negative thing that has ever happened in this country associated with race. Thanks for listening.